Before Olympus crowned its kings and queens, before men carved names into marble or offered prayers to thunderclouds, there was the sea. It churned beneath the world like a restless heart, eternal and unknowable. From that salt-born abyss came forces and Ceto, deities ancient as chaos, primal and cold. They were not gods of temples and incense, but of deep water and fear, parents to the monsters of legend. Sea serpents, whales with eyes like eclipses, and twin daughters whose names would freeze a sailor's soul. First came Stheno, fierce and wild, teeth born sharp. Then Uriel, loud as storm tide, with eyes that never closed. But on a strange tide, during a night when the moon refused to rise, Ceto gave birth again, and this time, something different emerged. A child not of fang or fin. A child with skin like ivory, hair spun gold, and a cry that echoed like birdsong rather than thunder. They named her Medusa. Her sisters, immortal and monstrous, circled her like wolves puzzled by a lamb. She bore no claws, no scales, just smooth skin and quiet eyes. She is soft, Stheno said. She is weak, Uriel hissed. She is mortal, forces warned. And yet, they did not kill her. Even the sea, which swallows most mistakes, seemed to cradle this one close. There was a stillness around Medusa, a lightness that the deep had never known. Her laughter startled fish. Her touch calmed storms. She would run barefoot along the cliffs where the waves crashed, hair flying like a golden banner, chasing wind and starlight. But she was never quite home. Among her kin, she was a flower in a field of stone. Her sisters were cruel, protective, strange. They loved her in their own way, with fierce hugs that bruised and lullabies sung in growls, but they could not understand her. You were meant for the world above, Ceto whispered one night, her barnacled fingers brushing Medusa's brow. And so, as the years passed, Medusa turned her gaze inland, toward the land of men and gods, where temples gleamed and mortals dreamed. She left the sea behind. The earth welcomed her hesitantly, as if unsure what to make of a daughter of monsters with a face fit for poetry. Townspeople stared. Priests bowed. Painters begged for a moment to sketch her. She would sit quietly as artists wept mid-portrait, overwhelmed by the curve of her smile. She was not just beautiful. She was mythical, and still only a girl. But fame is a gift wrapped in rot. With every poem sung in her name, with every prayer whispered to the stars in her image, envy grew. Whispers followed her like shadows. Women scoffed. Men gawked. And the gods took notice. Medusa, unaware, kept her eyes lifted to the heavens. She believed in the gods of wisdom, not war. She had heard tales of Athena, goddess of knowledge, strategy, and sacred virginity. A goddess who valued not beauty, but brilliance. Not seduction, but service. I will serve her, Medusa told the stars. I will offer my life to something greater. And so, cloaked in humility, she journeyed to Athens, where the Parthenon rose like a mountain of marble and gold. There, beneath the towering statue of Athena, bronze eyes watching, spear held skyward, Medusa laid down her pride, her fame, her name. She became a priestess. Gone were the flowing gowns. She wore a simple white robe. Her hair was veiled, her voice quieted. She swept the stone floors at dawn and lit sacred oil lamps at dusk. Her beauty, though cloaked, only seemed to shine brighter under discipline. The people of Athens spoke of her in reverent tones. The other priestesses eyed her with uneasy admiration. And the goddess? Athena remained silent. Cold and unmoving, her likeness watched from the altar as Medusa offered her devotion. Perhaps the goddess was pleased. Perhaps not. But Medusa believed. Each morning, she whispered a prayer of gratitude. Each night, she kissed the temple floor and promised her life to Athena's name. She did not know her story had already been rewritten in the stars. Not as a girl of salt and gold, but as a warning. The city of Athens had seen many wonders, philosophers who made words into weapons, architects who bent stone into miracles, oracles whose voices echoed with godsong. But none drew as much quiet awe as the mortal girl in Athena's temple. Medusa, now cloaked in modest linen and sacred duty, should have faded into the background like all temple priestesses. She did not speak unless spoken to. She kept her eyes low, her hands folded, her heart trained on prayer and silence. And yet she burned. A flame behind a veil. A star behind clouded sky. Visitors to the Parthenon would pause at the doors, claiming the air shimmered differently within. Some swore the lamps flickered with unnatural grace when Medusa passed. They left offerings not to Athena, but to the unknown spirit who swept the marble steps barefoot in the dawn. At first, the other priestesses spoke kindly of her, a good girl, gentle, obedient. But reverence turned to bitterness when young men lingered too long in the temple. When noble women requested Medusa's prayers instead of theirs. When foreign poets left verses tucked beneath her bedding, addressed not to the goddess, but to her. Beauty does not belong in sacred spaces, one priestess hissed. The gods are watching. And they are not pleased. They were right. The gods were watching. Far across the sea, in the deep halls of his coral palace, Poseidon, lord of the sea, tilted his gaze toward the mortal world. He, who could summon earthquakes with a stomp and flood cities with a whisper, felt something stir, not from Olympus, but from a mortal flame flickering beneath Athena's nose. He saw her once, through a ripple of tide, veiled, kneeling, her fingers gently washing the base of Athena's altar. A mortal, yes, but made not of clay like the others. She carried the ocean's sadness in her eyes, and a kind of quiet defiance in how she refused to use her beauty as a weapon. He wanted her, not for love, not even for lust, for conquest, for the pleasure of unmaking something so carefully built, and perhaps for the satisfaction of violating Athena's domain, the virgin goddess who spurned him in the halls of Olympus, who carved cities in her name while the sea's shrines grew forgotten. Let us see how untouched she remains, he muttered to the waves. And so it began, the slow circling of a god around a mortal star. Medusa began to feel it first in her bones, a sudden cold in the temple at night, though the flames burned strong. Oil lamps sputtered when she passed. She dreamed of crashing tides, of being dragged beneath waters with no bottom. She would awaken drenched in sweat, her veil tangled like seaweed around her throat. The other priestesses noticed, too. Your presence disturbs the goddess, one accused. You are drawing eyes better left blind. Still, Medusa remained. She had nowhere else to go. Her sisters were far beyond the mortal veil, monstrous and hidden. Her parents were titans of the sea, beings she barely knew. And the world loved her face, not her soul. Only here, in this temple, had she found purpose. She believed Athena would protect her. She believed devotion was enough. But devotion cannot stop a god's hunger. And beauty, even hidden, can ignite war. One evening, as dusk fell and Medusa lit the sacred oil lamps one by one, the sky above Athens turned strange. Clouds thickened like boiling milk, and thunder cracked without lightning. The sea crashed harder against the shores, though no wind stirred. Poseidon was nearing. And still, Athena was silent. The goddess watched from her bronze throne in the heart of the temple, eyes cast in eternal stillness, unmoving as her priestess trembled before the storm. Medusa did not know yet, but the stars above had shifted. Her prayers would soon fall on deaf gods, and the flame that once burned with innocence would soon ignite an inferno. The sea knows longing. It knows how to wait. So did Poseidon. Days turned into weeks, and still he watched, through sea foam and mist, through storm clouds hung above the Acropolis. His gaze followed her like a shadow cast by a wave that never broke. Medusa felt it, though she could not name it. There were no eyes in the temple that should have watched her after dusk, yet she would freeze while lighting the final lamp, skin crawling, heart thudding against her ribs like it sought escape. Cold draughts whispered through cracks in the ancient stone though no doors were open. Salt clung to the air, thick and wrong, lingering in her throat as she chanted sacred hymns. She told no one. Who would believe her? That a god, the lord of earthquakes, had turned his immortal attention on a veiled priestess? She had taken the vow. Her body belonged not to herself, but to the goddess. She thought that vow protected her. But gods do not honor mortal vows, especially not when they're meant to keep them away. One night, as a tempest roared in the distance, Medusa stood before the altar of Athena, alone. The other priestesses had fled the storm, huddled in their quarters, whispering prayers. But Medusa remained, lighting the central flame as she did every night. Rain began to lash the marble columns. Thunder cracked open the sky. Then, silence. A silence too vast, too sudden. The kind of silence that comes before ruin. Medusa turned. The great doors of the temple swung open. And there, framed by lightning, stood Poseidon. Not cloaked in glory or wrapped in gentle light, but raw, ocean-born and terrible. His trident shimmered like a blade of frozen starlight. His robes whipped around him as if alive. His hair dripped seawater, each strand like a serpent of the deep. The rain didn't touch him. The wind bowed. The sea had come to claim its flame. You have been seen, he said, voice like deep tide and breaking bone. Medusa fell to her knees. Her veil slipped from her hair. She reached for Athena's statue, not in worship, but in plea. I serve the goddess, she whispered. You cannot. Poseidon stepped into the sacred space. She does not answer you. It was true. The bronze Athena stared ahead, unblinking, unmoved. No wrath, no lightning, no divine protection, only silence. Medusa backed toward the altar. This is a holy place. Then let it be remembered, Poseidon said, and came forward. What happened next would never be carved into temple walls. Not by the priests. Not by the poets. Not even by the gods. Because gods do not speak of what they destroy with their own hands. On the marble floor beneath the sacred ceiling of stars and wisdom, where divine law was meant to reign, Medusa's screams were swallowed by the stone. When it was over, the sea god was gone. The storm had passed. Only Medusa remained, crumpled beneath the feet of the silent goddess she had once worshipped, her veil soaked in salt and blood. The altar flame still burned beside her, flickering gently. Almost mockingly, she crawled toward it, not to pray, but to gather the pieces of herself left behind. Why? She whispered through broken breath. Why didn't you stop him? But the bronze eyes of Athena's statue offered no answer, only judgment. And in that moment, something in Medusa's heart began to wither. Not her faith. That had been torn away, but the part of her that still believed gods were just. She did not yet know that Athena would return with fire in her eyes, not to comfort, but to curse. That would come soon. But for now, Medusa lay beneath the stars, no longer priestess, no longer daughter of the sea, just a broken flame in the ruins of sacred silence. Morning broke not with light, but with silence. The first rays of dawn spilled over Athens like gold dust, but inside the temple, time held its breath. Medusa lay curled at the base of Athena's statue, robes torn, her body marked by salt and shadow. Her hair was tangled, her lips blooded. Around her, the sacred hall lay defiled. The floor cracked where Poseidon's weight had landed, oil lamps shattered, the scent of the sea clinging like smoke. No priestesses came to her aid. No voice comforted her. The goddess had not spoken. Until now. The air shimmered. A sound like steel against stone echoed through the chamber as the bronze statue of Athena Parthenos turned its eyes. Slowly, mechanically, alive. From it stepped the goddess herself, radiant, terrible, her cloak billowing with unseen wind, her helm glinting like sunlight on a blade. Her spear struck the floor with a ring that sent cracks spreading beneath it. Medusa, weak and trembling, lifted her head. Hope flickered in her like a dying ember. Goddess, she rasped, crawling forward. Forgive me, he defiled your house. I begged you. I called your name. Athena's gaze was cold fire, her jaw tight with rage. You allowed mortal flesh to stain my temple, she said, voice like marble grinding on marble. Medusa blinked. She didn't understand. He came unbidden. I didn't, you saw what he. Do not speak of what cannot be undone, Athena snapped. Her eyes scanned the ruin of her sanctuary, her sacred space sullied by mortal passion, divine arrogance, and feminine weakness. No mention of Poseidon. No rebuke of his violence. Only Medusa. Only blame. You, who were veiled in my name, who swore to serve me with chastity and devotion. You broke your vow. Whether by choice or consequence, the result is the same. The temple has been dishonored. Medusa's mouth opened, but no sound came. Her body trembled with grief, confusion, shame. But now, above all, rage. I served you, she whispered. I gave everything. My life. My body. My voice. You let him take them all. Athena's eyes narrowed. You made yourself a spectacle. You drew the gaze of gods. Beauty unchecked is as dangerous as any blade. And that was when Medusa knew, this was not justice. This was power. Cold, divine, and pitiless. Athena raised her hand. Let the gift that brought ruin now be your burden. The air cracked like a whip. The walls of the temple groaned. Let your golden hair become a crown of serpents, so none shall ever dare look upon it again. Medusa screamed as her scalp ignited. Her hair twisted and writhed, transforming into a mass of living snakes, hissing, snarling, fangs dripping venom. They thrashed in confusion, biting at each other, then stilling as they became one with her. Let your gaze become a mirror of punishment. Let all who meet your eyes turn to stone, for you shall carry the judgment of the gods. Pain seared through her skull, down her spine, into her bones. Her vision blurred, then sharpened. Too sharp. She blinked, and a nearby urn turned to stone. Medusa staggered back, horrified. No, please, what have you done? But Athena's expression did not change. You will dwell beyond the lands of men. Hide yourself in shadow. Become the thing they whisper of. The thing they fear. And then she was gone. No parting word. No comfort. No redemption. Just the echo of sandals across marble, fading into the wind. Medusa stumbled from the temple. The sun burned her eyes. Her skin crawled with serpents, each hiss like an accusation. The people of Athens screamed at the sight of her. Statues littered her path, men, women, even birds mid-flight, frozen by accident, not malice. She wept, but her tears turned the earth beneath her to stone. The curse was real. So she fled, past cities, past farmlands, past the mortal world, to Hyperborea, the land beyond the north wind, where silence reigned and time dared not follow. There, among frozen cliffs and ancient stones, Medusa made her exile. Not as a monster, not yet, but as a woman betrayed. A flame, cursed to burn in the dark. The wind howled through Hyperborea like a dirge sung by the gods themselves. Cold and forgotten, the jagged cliffs bore no footprints, save hers. Here, in the land beyond breath, Medusa made her home, not by choice, but banishment. The cave she found was carved by time and storm. At its mouth, petrified wolves stood frozen mid-snarl, their stone eyes wide in eternal terror. Within, darkness clung like a second skin. She had not eaten in days, not truly slept in weeks. The snakes in her hair never did. They twitched at every sound, hissing at shadows, gnawing at her thoughts. Sometimes, when she wept, they nuzzled her. Other times, they turned on her scalp, their tiny fangs nicking her skin as if punishing her sorrow. Her reflection was gone. The last time she caught a glimpse of her face in a puddle, the water turned to rock. A warning. A punishment. A reminder. Her beauty, the very thing that once made her beloved, sought after, envied, now hunted everything it touched. Even now, she didn't fully understand what she'd become. She only knew this. She could no longer love. She could no longer be loved. And she could not die. One night, she heard it, footsteps crunching ice. She crouched low, heart pounding. A hunter? A god? A mistake? Then a voice echoed into the cave. Sister. She gasped. From the dark emerged Athena and Uriel, her sisters, immortals, daughters of ancient sea deities, red-eyed and strong. Medusa, Athena whispered, approaching with arms outstretched. Medusa backed away, but her tears threatened to spill. Don't, she said. I'll hurt you. I hurt everything now. But Uriel only smiled, a sad, wild smile. Do you think we came to you without knowing? You are our sister, Athena added, before the curse. And after. They stepped into the torchlight. And for the first time, Medusa realized they had changed too. Not cursed, but altered. Scaled skin shimmered on their shoulders. Their eyes glowed faintly red. Something in their blood had been called forth by her transformation. You should leave, Medusa said. It happens without warning. A glance is all it takes. I can't even touch the moon's reflection. Uriel knelt, taking her hand. Then let the world beware your gaze. If it fears you, let it kneel. Stheno nodded. We will stay. We will protect. You are not alone, Medusa. And that was the night the Gorgon sisters became legend. Not as monsters. Not yet. But as sentinels. Guardians of the cursed. But still, death followed. A bird once flew into the cave, seeking warmth, and crashed, stone mid-flight. Its fragile wings shattered on the cave floor. She screamed. The snake screamed with her. Another time, a mortal wandered into the cliffs, chasing tales of a cursed maiden. He barely crossed the threshold before his body turned rigid, his last breath etched in stone, one hand stretched toward her as if he'd seen something beautiful before the end. Each time, it hollowed her further. This is no gift, she whispered one night. It is a weapon, Stheno replied. Then it should have a target, Uriel said. But Medusa shook her head. I won't become what they say I am. I didn't ask for this. Still, she grew colder with each season. Her footsteps no longer echoed. Even the gods stopped watching. Except one. In the shadows of Olympus, Athena watched. Not with pity, not with remorse, but with calculation. The curse had been placed. The world was shifting, but the threads of fate were not yet cut. Medusa was no longer a priestess, no longer a victim, and soon, she would no longer be a myth. She would become a warning. Let no man call himself a hero until he has stood before a woman wronged by the gods. Long after Medusa vanished into the edge of the known world, stories still whispered of her, but none told the truth. The tale of a monstrous Gorgon whose gaze could turn armies to stone, a beast lurking in a cave, guarding ancient treasures, a test of courage only the boldest could face. But no one spoke of the girl who once wept on marble floors, her body broken by a god and her soul cursed by a goddess. No one remembered the priestess, only the monster. And so, when King Polydectes of Seriphos sought to rid himself of a noble boy who dared oppose him, Perseus, son of Danae, he crafted a death sentence cloaked as a heroic quest. "Bring me the head of Medusa," the king said, with a sneer hidden beneath his royal smile. "Not just any Gorgon, only she whose gaze alone can kill." Perseus, young and proud, took up the challenge. He did not yet know that heroes are often puppets, and quests are not always noble. The gifts of the gods. Athena, ever watchful, descended from Olympus. She appeared to Perseus not as protector, but as orchestrator. She gave him a bronze shield, polished to a mirror's gleam. "Look not into her eyes," the goddess warned, her voice cold as marble. "Let her gaze reflect in this, and strike while she is blind." From Hermes, Perseus received winged sandals, a blade sharp enough to cleave gods, and a helm of darkness that made him invisible. The gods armed him well, but none of them told him who Medusa truly was. The long march north. Perseus journeyed far, past the pillars of Heracles, beyond the deserts of Libya, through lands frozen and unmarked on maps. He sought the Gree, three withered seers who shared a single eye between them. From their gnarled hands, he wrested the path to the Gorgon's lair. "She is not what you think," the sisters rasped. "Do not wake what the gods have shamed." But he did not listen. Or perhaps he could not afford to. He was a hero now, and heroes are not taught to ask questions, only to win. The Gorgon's cave. In the chill of twilight, Perseus arrived. The mouth of the cave yawned like a dead god's mouth, vines thick as ropes, petrified statues scattered like forgotten prayers. Inside, silence reigned. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Medusa slept, coiled among her sisters, hair of serpents gently swaying. Her face, even in monstrosity, still bore the sorrow of a once beautiful girl. Stheno and Uriel lay beside her, keeping watch even in dreams. Their loyalty had never wavered. Perseus crept forward, shield angled downward, sandals silent above the ground. And yet, in that moment, as he approached, something within him paused. Not fear, not doubt, but a flicker of recognition. The faintest awareness that this was not just a beast, but a woman. The end is set. But before that flicker could bloom into truth, Athena's voice echoed in his mind. "Do not falter. Strike now. For justice. For glory." And so, he did. In one swift motion, guided by the reflection in the shield, Perseus brought the blade down. The world held its breath, and the silence shattered. Before the sword fell, she remembered everything. The world had grown quiet again. In the shadows of the cave, the night swam with the low hum of snakes slithering gently over her shoulders. They murmured lullabies older than Olympus itself, songs her sisters used to sing to her when they were all still young, still untouched by divine rage. Medusa, now no longer maiden nor priestess, nor monster nor martyr, lay with her back to the cold stone floor. She had not slept well in years. Her dreams came with the scent of salt water and blood. And gods. Tonight, though, was different. Her sisters were nearby, their breathing steady, their limbs curled protectively around her. They always kept watch, and she always pretended she didn't hear them cry when they thought she was asleep. She knew they tried to find a cure. They'd prayed to forgotten gods, carved charms into the stone, even cut their own skin to offer the sky some kind of bargain. But nothing could undo Athena's wrath. The moment before the end. And then, she felt it. A new presence. Not divine, but guided. He had come. Not the first would-be hero to reach her cave, but the first to be shielded by the gods themselves. He walked with the silence of a killer and the hesitance of a child. Medusa did not open her eyes. She didn't need to. The snakes in her hair hissed softly, warning her. Her body, once soft and sacred, tense with ancient instincts. She could have turned. She could have lashed out. But she didn't. Let him end it, she thought. Let this boy with the winged shoes give them the ending they wrote for me. She was tired. Her final thoughts. She thought of her mother, Ceto, whose waters had once cradled her as a child. She thought of Athena, who never looked her in the eyes even before the curse, the goddess who protected cities but punished survivors. She thought of Poseidon, who took what he wanted and left only silence. She thought of beauty, and how it betrayed her. She thought of her sisters, Stheno and Uriel, whose loyalty had been louder than any prayer. And then she thought of herself, as she once was. A girl kneeling beneath the olive trees, whispering devotions with gold in her hair. A girl who believed that temples were safe, that gods were just. The blade falls. When the sword finally came, it was not pain she felt. It was release. There was light. Not divine, not holy, but gentle. It poured from her severed neck, and from her blood sprang two beings. Pegasus, the winged horse, wild and free. Chryse, a warrior born full-grown, blade in hand. Her children, not of love, not of union, but of consequence. Born from her death, they carried her power into the world. Not as a curse, but as a legacy. What remains? Perseus took her head. He did not look back. He would go on to rescue maidens, slay sea monsters, and place her gaze upon his enemies, never knowing that it once belonged to a girl who sang to olive trees and laughed with her sisters beneath moonlight. Athena would place the severed head upon her shield, the aegis, as if to say, "This is what becomes of women who defy gods." But those who remember, truly remember, know better. Medusa's curse was never her monstrosity. It was that she survived a god's touch and bore the fury of a goddess, and still refused to be silenced. Even in death, she is remembered. Even in myth, her story lives. Not just as a monster, but as a woman who dared to exist beyond their control.